A handful of years ago, my husband Mikey texted me from his brothers, "Do we want another dog?" "No," I said, "we already have enough." I think we were like at 4 dogs at that point. His sister-in-law's mother, Tony, was watching a dog family that was wandering her neighborhood on the streets. At first, it was a mom and a bunch of little puppies. Gradually, the puppies disappeared. She saw that some were hit by cars. Then the mom disappeared. And there was one lone pup left, whom she called Butt-Butt. He was left behind. He followed the kids to school. He waited for them in the playground. He would beg for scraps of food from them. And you know how children love puppies. They gave him treats, and he would follow them home. After school, Butt-Butt would go around Tony's apartment complex begging at the doors. She would lock up her 2 little chihuahuas. Butt-Butt was a pit bull of some sort. She would let Butt-Butt in, feed him, and give him water, let him rest for a while, and then usher him back out onto the streets. One day, Tina was picking up her mom, Tony, and she saw that Butt-Butt almost got hit by a car. So she opened her van, called him, and he jumped right into the van. But they already had too many dogs. So they asked Mikey if Mikey wanted another dog, and so Mikey asked me. So I said, "We have enough dogs." "No, we can't take another dog, I'm sorry." He came home from his brother's house, and I said, "Where's the new dog?" He said, "But you told me we can't have another dog." I said, "Yes, I know I said that, but I fully realized that you wouldn't listen to me. That's the time I expected that there'd be another dog." The next weekend, he went back to his brother's house in Phoenix, Arizona, and came back with the dog. What can I say? I love dogs, and I actually married into a dog pack. Too often in our country, compassion is commodified as a preferential gift that's reserved only for certain deserving people. Think of the national spectacle that was Charlie Kirk's funeral. Other victims of political violence do not receive similar national honors. Everyone, absolutely everyone, every single human being in our country, in our world, deserves to be treated with compassion. In our shared Unitarian Universalist values, every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. Compassion is a core religious value. In Judaism, chesed, or compassion, it's sometimes translated as loving kindness, and it's considered a core characteristic of the Holy One. So for example, for Yom Kippur, Jews have the lore that the Holy One moves from the throne of judgment to the throne of compassion for the high holy days. For the Rabbi Jesus, he teaches to love and serve your neighbor in need, including loving your enemy and praying for those who persecute you. In the Quran, Allah is repeatedly addressed as the most merciful, the most compassionate, and we are invited to become that mercy, that compassion ourselves. By the way, the word Allah simply means God in Arabic. When Palestinian Christians pray, they pray using the word Allah. Hinduism has 4 paths to moksha, or liberation. Liberation from the cycle of birth, life, death, rinse, repeat, try again. And one of those 4 paths is karma yoga, or the yoga of selfless service. That's compassion in action. You find liberation, you find salvation through compassion in action, they teach. And compassion has become part of our American political discourse. The felonious president and other members of his administration condemned the Episcopal Bishop Marian Ann Bundy when she called for mercy for the marginalized who are living in our midst. To me, that sounds like anti-Christian bias. Now, this sparked a huge debate about compassion, a debate that was so totally divorced from religion and human values. Soon after that, like within a month after that, the evangelical alleged Christians published a new book about compassion that's called The Sin of Empathy, Compassion and Its Counterfeits. So I use the phrase evangelical alleged Christians. It comes from the ex-evangelical theologian Diana Butler Bass. She coined the term, and she uses the term to condemn evangelical support for the president and his inhumane and anti-Christian policies. She says that they ignore the radical, inclusive love and compassion of Jesus, whom they allegedly claim to profess. That's how come she coined the term evangelical alleged Christians. So the book Sin of Empathy claims that empathy is the greatest rhetorical tool of manipulation in the 21st century. On the one hand, the book offers a good example of manipulative empathy, like when someone throws a pity party for themselves. And we know this thing happens to all of us. We all have pity parties sometimes, and we need people to hear us out and help us, support us in that moment. The book says that if we capitulate and give in to the coddling, enable, and indulging of such compassion, that it's not empathy. It then goes on to claim that the trans rights movement has weaponized and twisted compassion in a manipulative national pity party. And it goes on with a tirade against the trans community. This breaks my heart. As Unitarian Universalists, we support the trans and gender diverse community, including intersex individuals, because every person is inherently worthy. We all are worthy. We all have value. We all bring meaning to our lives, and we contribute meaning to our world. We all, every single individual, has a right to flourish, and to do so with dignity and love and compassion. We're all seeking for our own path in life and for our own truth, and to live out of our own individuality. The book goes on to address women, specifically women who have been physically, sexually, or emotionally abused. The compassionate response the book claims has been to believe the person who has been victimized and empathize with them. And then immediately, the book brings up false accusations and exaggerations of such abuse. Instead of supporting victims of sexual and emotional and domestic abuse, the book advocates instead to make sure that, and this is a quote, to make sure that your compassion is anchored. So what does anchoring compassion mean? Instead of contacting the authorities to report such abuses, the book calls for victims to meet with their abusers. And I quote, "You're claiming this. I need to hear what your husband said or what this other person said, and then draw conclusions from that." That's further victimizing the victim of violence. I'm totally appalled by this. I'm aghast at how many things are wrong with this scenario about the sin of empathy. It's nothing less than white supremacist patriarchal misogyny covering up, protecting, and defending itself. we have a response. As Unitarian Universalists, this is my MAGA hat. I hope you like my MAGA hat. Love your neighbor in big letters. People see me at the gym and they look and they smile and they take a second look and then a frown comes on their faces. The whole premise of that book is so totally antithetical to our shared Unitarian Universalist values. It's completely antithetical to common human values of trusting the other, of kindness, of empathy, of love. Our historic Unitarian covenant reminds us that love is the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. That covenant comes from nearly 125 years ago in our religious tradition, and we've reframed and updated those concepts in our shared Unitarian Universalist values. Today we profess that love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. And love expresses itself in compassion for all sentient beings. Every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. Compassion is a basic human value the world over. The situation in our country with our fellow Americans under siege calls for compassion. 70% of those people who were abducted by ICE have no criminal record whatsoever. And ICE has detained a growing number of U.S. citizens and held them without charges. ICE tactics have grown increasingly brutal and inhumane. And the national outrage coming from the people of the United States has fallen on deaf ears. And in recent weeks, ICE has repeatedly attacked clergy leading peaceful protesters in prayer. In the October edition of Wayfarer, which is the UU World's online monthly newsletter, it has a series of articles about these abuses of human rights in our country and our Unitarian Universalist responses to them. We respond with compassion and action. We respond with compassion for the affected individuals and groups. We also respond with political action to stop these systemic abuses of power and imposition of violence. We believe in the American dream. We believe in the American dream that all people are created equal, that we are all endowed with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And you guys know that Thomas Jefferson is the one who penned those words. And Thomas Jefferson, although an Episcopalian, attended Unitarian churches, and his diaries say he expected the entire country to become Unitarian. Wishful thinking on his part. As Unitarian Universalists, we remind ourselves that love centers our values. We remember about the worthiness of every single individual to live their lives in peace and harmony and find what they are looking for in life, to create families, to find love, to find meaning in their lives, to find meaningful employment, and to have the opportunities to do good in this world. We believe in the right for all people, every single individual, to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. I never thought that I would be saying this, but in today's political climate, by claiming compassion for everyone, We're being countercultural. By championing compassion for everyone, we are taking a political stance. By supporting compassion for everyone, we are denouncing the wave of domestic and international violence unleashed by our administration with a blind eye from Congress. And still, we loudly proclaim that love is at the center of our shared values. Love your neighbor. That is our faithful Unitarian Universalist stance. Compassion is a universal human virtue. From the Buddhist perspective, compassion acknowledges someone else's pain, everyone else's pain, and also wishes for them to be free from suffering. In compassion, we can approach another person's life situation and be with them on their journey through life. We don't try to fix or cure them. We walk with them. We acknowledge them. We sojourn with them in all their joys and sorrows, like we were doing earlier today with the stones. So how can we develop this compassion ourselves? We told a bunch of stories today about compassion. Maybe one of them inspires you. Our opening hymn today was filled with loving kindness. It's a Unitarian Universalist version of a traditional Buddhist metta meditation. Metta means loving kindness, and it's often translated as compassion. So I'm inviting you now, one more final time, to take a meditative stance. Sit comfortably on your butts. Remember the dog's name? Support yourselves. If you want to, you can close your eyes. If you don't want to, you can keep them open, but follow your breath. Pay attention to your breath. Center yourselves on your breath. Breathe in and breathe out. As you're breathing in and breathing out, say to yourself silently in your mind's eye, may I be filled with loving kindness. Maybe you want to sing the chant that we sung. Go ahead and do that in your mind's eye. As you breathe in and you breathe out, say to yourself, may you be filled with loving kindness. Maybe think of a particular individual who needs loving kindness in this moment, who needs compassion right now. Breathing in and breathing out. Say to yourself, may we be filled with loving kindness. And as you are breathing in and breathing out and thinking that may we be filled with loving kindness, I invite you to open your eyes silently and look around at the people sitting next to you and in front of you and behind you. And say to yourself, maybe in a whisper, maybe not so silently, may we be filled with loving kindness. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be filled with loving kindness. This is a Buddhist spiritual practice. This is a Unitarian spiritual practice to cultivate compassion.